Alright, so I just thought I would make a quick video showing a controller modification that I made using a NES Mini controller. You know, the newly manufactured NES controllers by Nintendo that is supposed to replicate the classic ones. I think these are of pretty nice quality, and I also got it pretty cheap. And I don't have an NES Mini, so I thought I would repurpose this into a computer joypad instead. You know, the Atari style joystick that use 4 directions and fire. The home computer joypads or joysticks or whatever, they are pretty simply made. They just use 5 input lines and ground. So to make a button input, so to say, you just short one of the input lines or the input wires to ground, and then you have your input. I've seen some similar projects online where people mod their NES controllers into computer joypads, and they disable the up on the D-pad and put that on the A button instead to make it an ideal controller for platforming games. You know, the Great Guyana Sisters on C64, just as an example. So it's an optimal controller for that. But I went ahead and installed a dip switch on this one so that you could remap the controller depending on what type of game you're playing. So it's very, very simple. Switch 1 is to enable and disable up on the D-pad. Switch 2 is to enable B as fire. Switch 3 is to enable A as fire. And switch 4 is to enable A as up on the joystick, so to say. So this is your most common setting, I would imagine. You have all 4 directions on the D-pad, and both A and B act as fire. The second most common setting would probably be something like this. I would disable up, put it on A instead, and disable fire on the A button, so I only have it on the B button. Okay, so I can't accidentally press up when doing my platforming moves on the Great Guyana Sisters. I can use fire on the B button, and A is up on the joystick. So I would jump with that one. So a very simple solution. One thing you might add is the joypad fire 2 button, so you could enable that on either A and B using more dip switches or some more clever solution. I decided against that when I realized how few games would support it, and many of those platforming games would still have like up for jump, so you would not benefit that much using a second fire button when you can just remap the buttons like this instead. So this was my solution. I might show some gameplay footage now. Alright, I think I will put this controller into the ultimate test by using it with the Commodore 64 port of Super Mario Brothers. This should be an ideal controller to use with this game. Yeah, and I can almost immediately tell that this is very similar to playing the original PAL NES game. I mean, this is such an incredible port, really. It's not like the C64 that it's underpowered compared to the NES, but this is a C64 game that is trying to imitate all of the characteristics of an NES game. the screen resolution is not the same, and the sound hardware is obviously not the same either. So to see something that is this similar to an NES game, it blows my mind. The person who made this is a genius. I mean, the controls are pretty spot on. You have to be aware of the slowdowns. There are some slowdowns and hiccups here and there, but it's nothing to complain about really. I still have a hard time believing that this is running on a C64. And it's even more confusing when using an NES controller. Yeah, I should probably end this video right now.